Friday, October 17th, 2025. Welcome to the Noticias El Salvador SV podcast, in this space for conversation and reflection, where we explore together current topics from El Salvador and the world. Find us on your favorite platform. You can donate or contribute to stay connected and keep giving content on these platforms through PayPal or by means of Bitcoin QR, the PayPal you'll find in the content description and the Bitcoin QR on the cover of this episode. Remember to put in the subject of your transfer the reason something like donation, collaboration, talk about the topic I like for the coffee. This for internal control purposes. Also remember you can advertise through the space. If you are interested in the description is the email. Write to us, it will be very nice to hear from you.
Welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're zeroing in on a single incredibly turbulent day, Friday, October 17th, 2025.
Yeah, quite a day. It felt like multiple fault lines shifting at once: geopolitics, finance, security.
Exactly. Our mission today is to really dissect that 24-hour period. We saw the huge global financial swings, escalating political friction, both, internationally and closer to home here in Central America. And it all seemed to pivot around this trade war declaration, didn't it? That's what really crashed the crypto markets.
Right. While at the same time sending gold through the roof. Record highs.
Which suddenly makes El Salvador's gold strategy look, well, pretty prescient.
Definitely. We're also tracking major security developments, particularly around Venezuela and the United States military presence, plus some significant political shifts in the U.S. administration itself.
It's a lot to unpack. The core tension, as you said, is that United States-China trade conflict. President Trump's words basically lit the fuse.
Created that Red Sea in crypto, as the analysts called it.
Triggered massive liquidations. But gold became the oasis.
So how did one man's words cause such chaos in digital assets while this ancient metal soared? Let's dig into that collision, starting with the trade war flashpoint. Okay, so the trigger was pretty clear, right? President Trump declaring the United States is in a trade war with China.
Yeah, the language was stark, accusing China of an economically hostile act.
Specifically over soybeans, claiming China deliberately stopped buying U.S. soybeans to hurt American farmers.
It wasn't subtle diplomacy, that's for sure. It was like an open declaration.
Yeah.
And the markets, well, they reacted instantly.
How bad was the crypto fallout?
Immediate and severe. Bitcoin, BTC, dropped 6.3% that Friday.
Wow.
Yeah, hitting a bottom of $104,600. And the total crypto market, it lost 7.2% of its value, falling back to $3.6 trillion.
Ouch. That's a huge chunk of value vanishing fast.
Was it a slow bleed? This was a flash crash, driven purely by that geopolitical fear, the threat of more tariffs.
And the altcoins often get hit harder in these situations, don't they?
They did. We saw BNB down, 11.8%. Solana, SOL, lost 10.3%.
Even Ethereum.
Even ETH, which sometimes holds up a bit better, still dropped 8%, landed around $3,711. It was just panic selling, pure flight from risk.
But here's the fascinating part. You mentioned the flight wasn't just to cash.
No, it was a desperate scramble for perceived stability. And that stability on that Friday was gold.
So while Bitcoin and the others were bleeding out?
The gold-backed token stood out. PXG actually revalued up by 3%. XAUT gained 2.5%. They were basically the only green spots in the top 100 crypto list.
Which mirrored what physical gold itself was doing.
Exactly. Physical gold smashed records. Hit an absolutely unprecedented high of $4,300 per troy ounce.
$4,300. Let's just let that sink in. And wasn't gold already having a huge year?
A monster year. It had already accumulated a 71% gain in 2025 alone.
71%?
Yep, making it hands down the best investment of the year. And look, this isn't about industrial demand for gold.
No, this is fear.
It's entirely driven by that political risk premium. The worse United States-China relations get, the better gold looks. That estimated $30 trillion global gold capitalization, it starts looking very, very safe.
So let's go back to the trigger, the soybeans. It seems almost trivial, but it wasn't.
Not at all. It was the specific lever China pulled in retaliation for U.S. tariffs. They were very clear about it.
How significant were those purchases before?
Huge. In 2024, China bought over $12 billion worth of U.S. soybeans. $12 billion.
And then in September 2025?
Zero. Cut off completely their demand and the irrational tariffs.
And Trump's response was predictable.
Double down. Called the soybean halt economically hostile. Talked about retaliation, maybe ending broader agreements. This was just days after those 100% tariffs on Chinese imports went into effect.
Right, which had already knocked Bitcoin down 13% from around $120,000.
Exactly. So it just shows how tightly financial markets are now tethered to the rhetoric coming out of Washington and Beijing. Even the traditional markets felt it. S&P 500 down 0.63% the day before. NASDAQ 100 lost 0.14%. Fragile.
Okay, so after this crash, what's the technical picture for crypto? Can it bounce back?
Well, Guilherme Prado over Bitget was looking at this. He sees BTC facing really strong resistance now, between $115,000 and $116,700.
So it needs to break through that convincingly.
Yeah, to get back towards that 120K level. On the downside, the immediate support is pretty critical, somewhere between $110,000 and $111,000. If that breaks.
More pain. But these violent drops, they can sometimes trigger the opposite reaction, right? That short squeeze idea.
That's right. It becomes a kind of market pressure cooker. When the price falls that fast, a lot of traders jump in short, betting it'll fall further.
Okay.
But João Wetson, founder of Fractal, pointed out just how massive the opening of short positions was. Extremely fast, extremely large.
So if the price stabilizes or even ticks up slightly?
Those short sellers are suddenly underwater. They have to buy back Bitcoin quickly to cut their losses. That forced buying is the short squeeze.
Like adding fuel to a fire.
Exactly. Wetson thought it could potentially force the price back up to around $117,000 pretty quickly, maybe in just a few hours, purely driven by shorts covering.
And the scale of the damage from leveraged traders was huge.
Oh, enormous. CoinGlass reported over $1.2 billion in total liquidations across the market.
Billion with a B.
Yep, just wiped out. Mostly margin calls on long positions. It happened in two big waves.
Right.
First wave took out $573 million as the price fell through $114,600. Then another $383 million near $111,270. It just highlights the brutal amplification effect when you mix political shocks with leveraged trading.
Meanwhile, despite all this pressure from Trump, how is China actually doing on the trade front overall?
This is maybe the most interesting long-term piece. Data reported by the Wall Street Journal showed China's overall exports actually rose 8.3% in September.
Rose, despite the tariffs.
Yep, highest rate in 6 months. It suggests that while the U.S. tariffs are definitely rerouting trade, they aren't crippling China's total export machine.
So where's the trade going instead?
Well, exports directly to the United States did fall sharply, down 27% year over year. That shows the tariffs biting there.
Okay.
But China pivoted. Exports to the Union Europea surged 14.2%. That's the fastest rate in over 3 years. And exports to ASEAN countries grew 15.6%.
Wow. So they're successfully redirecting.
It looks like it. Direct shipments to the U.S. are now only about 10% of China's total exports.
Which raises a huge question, doesn't it? If tariffs just push China to build stronger ties elsewhere.
Exactly. How much leverage does the U.S. actually have in this trade war long term? The data suggests China is adapting, maybe insulating itself from U.S. pressure faster than many expected.
Okay, so that financial chaos was one major story of October 17th. But it wasn't happening in a vacuum. We saw major ripples in geopolitics and military affairs too, especially around the U.S. and Central South America.
Yeah, starting with a pretty significant resignation. Admiral Alvin Halsey, the commander of Southcom.
Leaving his post less than a year after taking it? That sounds unusual.
Highly unusual, especially during a period of intensified anti-narcotics operations in the Caribbean. It signals friction.
And wasn't this part of a broader pattern?
Reportedly, yes. Sources indicate he's one of over a dozen high-ranking officers dismissed or separated under the current Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth.
A dozen? Wow.
Yeah, and apparently many of those pushed out have been women and officers of color. It suggests a significant shakeup, maybe even a purge, in the military command structure.
And this is happening while there are thousands of U.S. troops deployed in the region.
Right. Around 10,000 soldiers focused on those anti-narcotics and anti-terrorism missions. So a command change like this in that context is a big deal.
And then Trump himself made a claim about military action.
You did. Publicly claimed the U.S. attacked a drug-transporting submarine in the Caribbean.
Which ties into reports about survivors from an attack on a similar vessel.
Exactly. 2 survivors from an attack the previous day, Thursday, on a semi-submersible craft were detained.
Okay, and this is where it gets legally very complicated.
Extremely. Indications are these 2 survivors are being held on a U.S. Navy warship. Now, previous attacks on these kinds of vessels since September reportedly resulted in fatalities. No survivors.
So these 2...
They raise a profound question. Are they the first prisoners of war in this well, undeclared conflict the administration is waging against what it calls the narco-terrorist threat from Venezuela.
How they're classified legally could set a huge precedent.
Absolutely, for all future U.S. military engagements like this in the region.
Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Venezuela was apparently trying some high-stakes diplomacy.
Yeah, reports suggest Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, using Qatar as a mediator, offered the U.S. a kind of transition plan.
A plan without Nicolas Maduro.
That seems to be the core idea, sometimes called Madurismo sin Maduro, keeping the system but removing the figurehead.
Trying to appease international pressure while preserving the existing power structure.
Exactly. The proposals apparently evolved. Earlier ideas involved Maduro stepping down, but staying in Venezuela. The more recent one, back in September, suggested Maduro go into exile, maybe Turkey or Qatar.
And Rodriguez would lead a transition, maybe with someone like General Rodriguez Torres.
That was reportedly part of the plan. It's an attempt at a controlled landing, avoiding total collapse or a U.S.-led intervention.
Maduro himself also made an offer, something about oil and gold.
Yeah, apparently offering U.S. companies preferential access to oil and gold projects, basically trying to lure investment away from China, Iran, and Russia.
But the White House wasn't biting.
It seems not. Sources confirm they rejected a similar 3-year transition plan proposed earlier by Venezuelan officials. Suggests the U.S. wants a faster, maybe more fundamental change.
Especially if, as reported, covert CIA operations are already authorized and potential ground attacks are being considered.
Right. It suggests a deep skepticism about any transition plan that leaves the current network largely intact. They offer signal weakness in Caracas, but Washington seems unwilling to grant them a lifeline.
Okay, shifting focus to Europe now. That upcoming Trump-Putin summit in Budapest.
Yeah.
Big diplomatic implications there.
Huge. The Telegraph's analysis really nailed it, calling it a significant humiliation for the Union Europea.
Humiliation how?
Well, first, the EU is completely sidelined from these critical talks. It continues a pattern where major geopolitical deals happen outside Brussels.
And second?
It's a big win for Hungary's Viktor Orban. His country, often criticized by the EU, is suddenly center stage. It kind of validates his independent path.
And there was that interesting legal maneuver by Hungary, too.
All right. They recently withdrew from the International Criminal Court. Convenient timing.
Meaning they wouldn't have to arrest Putin if the ICC warrant was still active?
Precisely. Clears the path for the summit without that legal headache.
While courting Putin, Trump was also taking shots at NATO allies again.
Yeah, specifically Spain this time. Said Spain has not been loyal to NATO for not hitting that 5% defense spending target he wants. Suggested Spain should be reprimanded. More pressure on allies to spend more.
Back in the U.S., legal trouble for a familiar face, John Bolton.
Yes, the former national security advisor. He surrendered to authorities after a federal grand jury in Maryland indicted him.
On charges related to the
Improper handling of classified documents. Specifically, the indictment mentioned retaining and transmitting classified email summaries.
potentially violating the Espionage Act.
That's the potential charge. The FBI had already seized the materials back in August. It just shows the continued focus on how classified information was handled by former officials.
And finally, a tragic piece of news from the West Bank.
Yes, just awful. Wafa, the Palestinian news agency, reported the death of an 11-year-old boy, Mohammed Bajat al-Halak.
How did it happen?
Reportedly killed by an Israeli shot while he was playing soccer in a school courtyard in southern Hebron. Struck in the pelvis. Just a terrible reminder of the human cost of that ongoing conflict.
Let's bring our focus back to Central America now. October 17th saw quite a bit of movement there too, starting with Guatemala.
Right. President Bernardo Arevalo had to appoint a whole new security cabinet.
Why the sudden change?
It followed a major prison crisis. Apparently, it exposed some serious systemic failures and corruption, forcing a reset at the top. Marco Antonio Villeda Sandoval took over as Minister of Government, tasked with sorting out that mess.
Elsewhere, in Peru, the interim president, José Jarrí, was asking for special powers.
Yeah, requesting special powers from Congress. That's a pretty significant move.
What does that actually allow him to do?
It essentially lets the executive legislate by decree for a period, bypassing the normal congressional process. He argued it was necessary to tackle rising insecurity and ongoing protests quickly.
Suggests things are pretty tense there.
It does. Indicates the government felt standard procedures weren't enough to maintain order.
And in Costa Rica, a different kind of political drama, the electoral tribunal going after the president.
Yes, requesting that President Rodrigo Chavez's immunity be lifted.
That's huge. Why?
Over allegations that he improperly interfered in elections. The tribunal clearly believes there's enough evidence to proceed legally, which requires removing his immunity. It shows a strong system of checks and balances, really.
Now turning to El Salvador. Amidst all this global and regional turmoil, the news here was kind of a mixed bag, but with some definite bright spots.
Right. On the security front, the country marked 10 days without any homicides in October up to that point. That continuing trend is significant.
And financially, that bet on gold we discussed earlier, it paid off handsomely.
Hugely. A recent gold purchase netted the state a reported $10.8 million profit.
$10.8 million just from the timing.
Exactly. Bringing the country's total gold reserves to 58,105 ounces, which at that record $4,300 price valued the reserves at over $252 million.
So holding that traditional asset provided a real cushion against the crypto crash and market volatility.
A very valuable cushion, yeah. Validated that strategy, you could argue.
The justice system also seemed to be hitting some milestones.
Yes, particularly concerning crimes against vulnerable groups. Between January and September, there were 1,090 convictions logged for rapists and aggressors of minors.
1,090.
And what's striking is that figure is higher than the total convictions for both those crimes combined in previous full years.
Wow. Suggests a real focus there.
A strategic push, it seems, to clear backlogs and deliver justice in those specific types of cases.
Okay, so positive news on security, finance, and parts of the justice system. Then there's the weather.
Ah, yes. The overwhelming rainy season. Minister Fernando Lopez gave a pretty sobering update.
How bad has it been?
Well, October, just 17 days in, had already exceeded the entire monthly average rainfall by 1.1%.
Already over the average for the whole month.
Yep, and the total accumulation for the year so far, almost 2,000 millimeters. 1,990 millimeters to be exact.
That's an incredible amount of water. The ground must be completely saturated.
Completely. And adding to the worry, there was an active low-pressure system in the Atlantic they were watching closely, with potential to become a tropical storm, meaning more rain was likely, especially afternoons and evenings.
And that combination, saturation and more rain, is already causing problems.
Big problems. We saw reports of derrumbes, landslides completely blocking the road in Comasagua, La Libertad.
Dangerous.
Very. And severe flooding, inundations, reported in La Union and Usulután. Tragically, a man was killed in Usulután, dragged away by a strong current.
Just awful. It really underscores that even with progress elsewhere, the environmental threat from extreme weather is immediate and deadly.
It's perhaps the most acute, widespread risk facing the country right now.
Okay, just pausing here for a moment before we get into the final section covering local justice details, sports, and some international figures.
We just want to take a second to thank you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive. Putting together this level of detail takes significant effort and resources.
It really does, and your support is crucial. If you find value in this analysis, please consider collaborating or donating to help us keep it going.
You can contribute easily via PayPal. The link is in the description, or by using the Bitcoin QR code you'll find on the cover image for this episode. Every little bit helps us stay connected and keep delivering this content.
And don't forget, if you have a business, a product, or a service you'd like to share with our very engaged audience, this space is available for advertising.
That's right. Just drop us a line at the email address provided in the description. We'd be really happy to discuss how we can partner up. Okay, let's get back to the final stories from that Friday.
All right, let's quickly go back to the Salvadoran justice system for a specific and frankly shocking case result from October 17th. Moises Otonio Portillo Moran.
Yes, sentenced to 102 years in prison.
102 years. That sentence alone tells you the severity of the crimes.
Absolutely. He was convicted by the third trial court in San Salvador for a series of attacks against 6 women over several months, from September 2022 to February 2023.
What were the specific convictions?
6 counts of aggravated robbery, 3 counts of rape, and 3 counts of sexual assault. A truly horrific pattern of violence.
And his method of operation was particularly cruel, wasn't it?
It was. Reportedly, he operated in the early mornings, targeting women on their way to work in places like Ciudad Delgado, Cuscatancingo, and along the Troncal del Norte.
Using a firearm?
Yes, he'd use a firearm to rob them. But then he'd force the victims to undress, using the horrific pretext of searching for gang tattoos, sometimes claiming he was acting on gang orders.
Using the fear of gangs to facilitate sexual assault.
Exactly. A truly depraved method. The 102-year sentence reflects the court's view on the brutality and repetition of his crimes.
Were there other significant justice items reported that day?
A couple of others stood out. An arrest of a woman in Sensen Tepic, accused of poisoning her cousin, reportedly out of jealousy.
Oh, dear.
And sadly, separate reports confirmed the violent deaths of 3 women in 3 different departments that day. A grim reminder of ongoing challenges.
Shifting to government budgets, the security budget for 2026 was being discussed.
Right. The Minister of Public Security and Justice defended a proposed budget of $702.58 million.
Any particular focus for that funding?
A key part is funding for a new police technological model. And interestingly, the creation of a dedicated drone laboratory.
Drones for policing.
Seems so. Signaling a shift towards more tech-heavy surveillance and response capabilities.
What about major infrastructure projects? Any updates there?
Yes, there was a development with the Los Carros Viaduct project. The Ministry of Public Works requested a review of the design.
A review? Why? Problems.
Apparently, some observations or deficiencies were noted in the original design, so they paused to review and ensure everything is structurally sound before proceeding. Probably a prudent move, even if it causes delays.
Better safe than sorry on a big project like that. Okay, let's lighten the mood slightly with some sports news. Central American Games 2025 were ongoing.
They were, and El Salvador had some successes to celebrate that day. A silver medal in men's sports shooting, and a fantastic gold medal for Grisha Mendoza in artistic swimming.
Gold. Excellent.
Plus, the female rifle team, including Johanna Pineda and Veronica, brought home a silver medal too.
Good results. Any other sports snippets?
Pilot Eduardo Canizales talked about wanting to represent El Salvador dignantly. And in the NBA, big news for Spurs fans. Victor Wembanyama's contract was renewed until 2027.
Okay, finally, let's touch on those international persona stories that were making headlines. The British royals.
Prince Andrew. He formally renounced his remaining royal titles. This was kind of the final step after that long chain of scandals, removing him completely from public royal life.
And the other big story involved the musician Akon.
Yes, his divorce case. His wife of 29 years, Tameka Tayam, filed for divorce seeking a massive settlement, 100 million euros.
100 million euros. Wow. But then things got strange.
Very strange. When authorities looked into his finances as part of the proceedings, they apparently found only $10,000 in his personal bank account.
10,000? That seems low.
Extremely low for someone of his profile, which led to immediate suspicion, reported widely, that his actual wealth, like tens of millions, is being held by his mother.
A way to shield assets in a divorce.
A classic, though sophisticated maneuver, often suspected in high net worth divorces. Just shows that personal bank balances don't always tell the whole story.
Indeed. Any cultural updates?
French press reported the legendary actress Brigitte Bardot was hospitalized for a serious illness. And for music fans here, the Argentinian rock band Roca Blanca confirmed they're set to perform in El Salvador on November 1st. #outro, summary and final thought.
So wrapping up our deep dive into Friday, October 17th, 2025, what a day. We saw the US-China trade war rhetoric directly trigger a crypto market collapse and simultaneously send gold to an unbelievable $4,300 record high.
A massive risk reevaluation playing out in real time.
Exactly. Geopolitically, we saw that significant shakeup at US Southcom, the complex legal questions around detainees near Venezuela, and those high-stakes behind-the-scenes diplomatic maneuvers. And here in El Salvador, a real contrast. Important security gains, smart financial positioning with gold putting off, but overshadowed by that severe, immediate environmental threat from the intense rainy season.
A mix of progress and peril.
So the final thought we want to leave you with today is this. On a day when political words can vaporize $1.2 billion in leveraged digital bets almost instantly, while the oldest physical store of value gains 71% in less than a year. What does that tell you?
What does it tell you about where the market perceives real risk and real safety right now? It seems to be assigning a massive premium against geopolitical stability itself.
How should that collision between political risk, digital finance, and physical assets inform your own thinking, your own knowledge strategy about where stability might actually lie in the years ahead? Something to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you again for joining us for this detailed look back.
We really appreciate you spending your time with us. And once again, if you'd like to support the work we do here, enabling us to continue these deep dives, please consider donating.
The PayPal link is in the description, and the Bitcoin QR code is on the episode cover. Your contributions directly support our research and production.
And if you're interested in advertising your product or service to our listeners, please reach out via the email in the description. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks again for listening. We'll be back soon with another deep dive.
Goodbye for now.